Okay. Anyways, so it's not just legal docs, it's everything. And so that's really important. The first thing we'll ask people when they call oftentimes is, it will be on that first conversation, does this client have a power of attorney for healthcare and finance? And, and healthcare directives. There's many different types of legal documents and a pulse. But we check in with the DPOAs, and if they don't have that, we're sending them immediately to get them. And the durable power of attorney for healthcare, you can even do at home with some witnesses. Also, take your plan and reevaluate it every year. I think in your situation where you're aging and things are changing, look at your legal documents, your trust, if you have a trust, and just reevaluate them. Also the letter, the letter, the directive letter. So as much preparation as you can do during this time is really going to prevent pitfalls, and also, more importantly, even enable you to do what you feel you want, so that your wishes are carried out, because there could be, or there couldn't be, a time when you cannot follow through on your own. So how do you know when it's time for assistance? Sometimes a lot of our clients don't know. So we get a call from a spouse, an adult child, sometimes a social worker. But how would you know? You are all obviously very proactive. You're here, so these are some clues to you that, yeah, maybe I should, reach out to somebody, and certainly reach out to a care manager. Where that's why this is really focused on care management, because they're wonderful, and every care manager should give you a free consultation, whether it's in person or on the phone. It's not a full assessment, but it's a time, maybe up to 45 minutes, an hour, to talk about what they can do for you. You'll know, because you'll start to feel anxious and depressed and isolated. Those are typically the first three things that you will feel. Or one of the big ones is feeling overwhelmed. We see that a lot. You're also having a more difficult time handling household duties, getting your meals. You might see a few late payments for bills. You're not getting to your bills in time. Those are typical things that you'll start to feel and see. And, it happens even with younger people when they're just overwhelmed. You see these things start to occur. A lot of the times, one of the first things that we see with memory issues, and it makes sense because people are vulnerable, is this anxiety. Just feeling more anxious and calling children more, and reaching out more, and that's a good and that might not be in your case, because you're all obviously very independent and doing quite well, but it's just something to think about. If you start to feel like, I'm asking more questions, I'm wondering more things, I'm feeling more anxiety, it's just a great time to reach out and speak with the care manager. Obviously, you'll know it's time for help, and we hope this doesn't happen when something bad happens. We see people confuse medications, or they don't have their medications when they need them. There's a fall, they're in the hospital, they don't want to come out and just go home with no care, or a plan. They want a plan of action when they go home to make sure they don't get re-hospitalized, because we see that a lot. People, we get the second hospitalization. They had already been in a hospital, but when they got home, maybe the social worker didn't take enough time to discharge them appropriately, or didn't know what was going on at the home and exactly what they needed, so they ended up back in the hospital with something else, or the same issue. They couldn't follow through on their care, and it's difficult. We have a lot of people that call, they've had a surgery and they want to talk to a care manager. We might not even charge them the care management time, but they need a caregiver, and they want to know that somebody's going to be there to help them discharge from the hospital, get their medications, make sure there's food in the refrigerator. There are so many different things that will have to be done, and that's very anxiety provoking. So a lot of the times care management is called in when there's a hospitalization, and often it's not a planned hospitalization. Certainly if you have cognitive concerns, it's another really great time to just reach out. And if you have family and friends, bring them into an initial consultation with a care manager. And certainly, come on your own if you're feeling like, I just want to research this and see what it is. We get a lot of calls like that as well.
All right, I had to unmute myself. You can hear me, yes?
Oh, yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to talk about some of the most common services that people tend to use. There's home care, home health, care management, and Janet will talk about fiduciary services. So with home care, we also call that caregivers. So home care is non-medical care. And that means that the caregivers don't do things like inject medications or do wound care, for example. But what I like to tell people is that they can do pretty much everything else. So for example, they can provide really meaningful companionship and stimulating activities with a senior or a client. They can help with personal care, whether this means, reminding or some assistance, or helping, very intimately with showering, with getting dressed or undressed, with toileting, changing any pull-ups if the client is using pull-ups and is incontinent. So any kind of personal care. The caregivers also can help with housekeeping. Certainly not a deep clean, but sort of the general things that may get put by the wayside or just not attended to on as frequent of a basis if you're not feeling up to it. So these are things like vacuuming, of course, and laundry is a big one. Many people have steps down to or up to their laundry, and so that can be a challenge. Any caregiver can also do grocery shopping, errand running, picking up a prescription perhaps from the pharmacy, any kind of personal shopping that a client may need. And of course, cooking is a big one as well. Many folks just aren't able to stand for a long time to cook, or don't maybe have the energy to cook a full meal. Some of our clients perhaps really just need help with microwaving, a simple meal, and so that can be done too. But we have, I know a number of caregiving agencies actually have caregivers who are very fine cooks, and that can be a real treat. As well for people who may not, be up for doing intricate meals anymore, but really getting that proper nutrition and attending to the need to actually eat, a few meals a day and getting snacks in between as well. So making sure that the client has, proper nutrition. As well as caregivers can attend doctor's appointments, provide transportation to those appointments, or provide transportation to anywhere else that the client may need. In regular times, going back to the first point, a lot of our caregivers will provide transportation to enjoyable places that a client may like, whether that's going for a walk or meeting up with friends at a cafe, going to the botanical garden, or going, to wherever else that the client may like to go as part of a nice activity, an enjoyable activity. It's really, improving quality of life.
And one thing I'd like to bring up too is in all of our cases where there's a caregiver provided. So again, caregiving is very different than care management, but we have to do both. So we have a very close relationship with the caregivers, but in every instance, it feels to the client like it's a family member. And one of the things that's really important to keep in mind is a lot of our clients are feeling a bit unempowered, that they have to rely on their family, et cetera. And so what's nice is they have this caregiver that's like their personal friend, aide, family member, and it empowers them again. And they're feeling better about the relationships. So it alleviates the family members from having responsibility, and then when they're with their family member, they're definitely able to be more, daughter, mom. So that's one of the things that I like the most about our caregivers is there was at one point where I used to go around and do some of the reassessments, and I it's amazing to see the relationships that are developed. They were just like family. And in a lot of them, the families were there too, because they wanted to ask some questions or say hello to us. And you just see such a bond.
And I know another point is that people may have questions around, well, who are these caregivers? You know, where do they come from? How do I know that it's safe to let someone in my home? And you know, it's an odd thing to let a stranger into your life. Well, I will say that for any agency, any caregiving agency, the caregivers, the agency is, you know, a licensed agency. All caregivers and all staff, even including myself, and I'm not a caregiver, have to register with the state of California as a home care aide. We are all background checked and fingerprinted, so that is thorough. And of course, you know, most agencies as well will provide, you know, an interview opportunity, really the chance to get to know the caregiver a little bit before we bring them on board. We offer training to caregivers as well as, you know, yearly and more in-services as well, so that everyone is keeping up to date with the latest information. For our particular agency, our caregivers are required to have at least a couple of years of experience as a caregiver, so no one is new to this field. And caregivers come in all, you know, all shapes and sizes, backgrounds, languages, and personalities. So really, it's very interesting because, you know, and again, many agencies will try to do this, is to really provide that match, because if a stranger is coming into your home, at least you want it to be a stranger you can, you know, be compatible with and eventually really comfortable with. And as Janet said, you know, become like a family member, or a trusted, you know, a trusted ally. And that is the goal, because having that extra support, feeling like it is support, then that can improve the client's health in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, Anna, you brought up the most important point is we do a match. So, and with our company, the social workers are going out. Anna goes out most of the time, and there is a match. We do look at personality. So we follow up we just follow up constantly with those caregivers and the client and the family until they say, we're good. And by that time, they're saying, I love the person. If they don't, we switch them out. But we often find I think caregivers are the heroes. We find it's very rare we don't find our caregivers are not very dedicated, and as I said, they almost become the best friend. So, and a lot of our clients don't have any family, and that is their family.
Yeah.
And they stay many, many years. They stay with them through the rest of their life. Okay.
So the next topic is home health. And so we want to differentiate between caregivers, which is what the caregiving agency usually provides, or the home care agency, and home health. It's a little bit different. Home health is, again, assistance more specifically with medical care needs at your home after you've had a hospital stay. So home health agency is different. The providers from the home health agency are providing the more medical follow-up and monitoring. So an RN, a nurse will visit usually once a week, sometimes twice, to take vitals and to make sure that, you know, certain supplies are in the home, and to you know, assess for safety in the home. There's also home health aide, who is similar to a caregiver in some ways, but they are the ones who do things like helping with bathing a lot of the time initially. And not everyone who has a caregiver certainly will have home health, because not everyone has just come from a hospital stay. So that's kind of the important differentiation with that piece. The home health providers are also physical therapists. There are occupational therapists as well as speech therapists. And so, you know, some of the most common, of course, are physical therapists to work on strength, occupational therapists to work on, you know, sort of relearning certain tasks around the home, and then speech therapists. Well, a lot of people may have swallowing issues, so to really work on making sure that they're strengthening their swallowing and they're getting, you know, food, the appropriate thickness of food down, and not choking. So that sort of thing for the speech therapist as well. So just to make sure there's that differentiation between home health and home care.
And by the way, one of the most important delineations is home health is covered by your health insurance.
Yeah.
And custodial care, which is regular caregiving, is not, unless you have long-term care insurance, and a lot of our clients do. The other thing just to note is that sometimes people get home health and they haven't been in the hospital. We, as care managers, we typically, one of the first things we're looking at when we're doing our assessment is how they're physically moving. And many, many times we will ask the family, or we will make a request to the physician to get a physical therapy assessment in place. And the way you do that, if you don't have a care manager, is you have to tell them, I've had a sudden change in my mobility. Sudden is the word, acute is the word, is the key thing. And we often get home health and no one's been hot, and the person has not been hospitalized. So if you're feeling wobbly in your house, if anything's going on, you can ask your doctor. So, suddenly, you have to use the right words. I'm finding, something like that. And I'm wondering if I can get some physical therapy. I mean, if you're out and about, you're obviously going to get it outside, so that's okay. But if you're homebound and you can't get out, you can still get home health to come to your house. They call it home health, but it obviously, as Anna was saying, it's got these many different kinds of services. And they also do chronic medical management. So if you have diabetes, anything chronic, cancer, there's specific departments within some of the home health companies that do chronic medical management, and that's really valuable.
So the next topic is care management, which we've spoken about a bit. So the overarching goal of care management is to, help clients to reach their maximum functional potential. So this can mean many things. It's a very holistic approach. So for our agency, we offer this comprehensive, what we call biopsychosocial assessment. So it can identify the client's challenges, excuse me, and their current strengths as well, of course. There are many questions regarding physical, emotional, cognitive function. What is the home environment like? What is your medical care like? Who are your medical providers? We then make a care plan, and we really tailor that care plan very specifically to the challenges and potential challenges that a client is facing, as well as offering interventions, referrals, more information about how to resolve these challenges. And
one of the things to bring up about care management is you can do as little or as much as you want. Our company, we're very flexible with that. And I'm not sure that all care managers are right now. I think people have gotten a lot more relaxed. It used to be, well, we have a package and you have to do this and you have to have a letter. I think people have realized that that's not going to be happening. Maybe the last 3 or 4 years, people have relaxed that a lot. We've always been an a la carte service. Sometimes people need an hour, and they're especially, people that are independent. They come in for an hour, hour and a half, and we don't hear from them for a while. We'll still get their information and put it in our, in our system so that we have that information in case they should need us in an emergency. And we see a lot of that, just people coming in and having a talking about themselves. So a lot of people do pre-planning with care management, but it's something where you can call us for 10 minutes. It's charged by the hour. We're $155 an hour. That's pretty average. Like I said, it's just something that doesn't have to be real expensive. But if you have a crisis and your kids don't live near you, or you don't have children, and you're just trying to figure out how to get back home and get back to a baseline, if possible, a care manager can do that, coordinate that with you quickly. So, I mean, for us, it's what we do. So we've done it for years, and it's really relieves a lot of anxiety. We can do medical advocacy with the hospital. We can make sure that, like we talked about earlier, that your medications are there when you get home, and that you have food, and you have the right caregiver, and that someone's checking in on you. Care managers do just about anything. I mean, Anna and sat with someone in the dental office the other day because he has anxiety about going to the dentist. She didn't plan on going in the room, but this poor gentleman has a lot of anxiety, has no family support, and I went in with him. I have to tell you, I was like, oh my God, do you have your goggles? It was scared me, but you know, we do what we have to do to help people to feel good about where they're at in their situation, in their care situation.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. We do have a number of questions in the chat, which I'm looking at now. We will address those, absolutely. Let me just talk a little bit more about the care management. So you have the whole picture. Oh, what happened there? Somehow my presenter view. Sorry guys, let me go back to where we were. There we go.
Funky.
Alrighty. Don't look at all the tabs I have open up above. All right, so I'm one of those people that has 100 tabs open all the time. Don't judge me. So like Janet said, the care managers work really closely with the caregivers, just, you know, to kind of ensure that the care plan is, you know, being followed, that the client's wishes are being followed. Absolutely. The instructions are updated as needed. Sometimes the, you know, care manager will go out and assess, of course, and then maybe a few days or a few weeks into caregiving, some things in the instructions need to be adjusted a little bit because the caregiver found actually this is sort of the situation, or this other thing we need less here and more here, you know, that sort of thing. So it's always, you know, it's always in flux. We're very flexible. The caregivers are so flexible, and it makes such a difference because we can really, you know, again, tailor that caregiving to the client. You know, one size doesn't fit all. And so the other piece is that, you know, we ensure that care coordination. So especially around medical providers, we ensure that the medical providers are communicating with one another as well. We can facilitate that. Sometimes, you know, there are specialists and the primary care provider, and there's also the physical therapist, and you know, who is doing what, and are they in communication with each other? We want to make sure that, you know, there's not too many medications doing the same thing. So that sort of thing to make sure that they're in touch. And then of course the social activity piece is really improving and maintaining quality of life and sort of that joie de vivre, that, you know, that making your heart sing, however you want to phrase it. But, you know, it's making sure that the caregiver can assist with providing activities, really meaningful activities for the client if they're interested, certainly. For example, if the person really always loved going to the opera, well, then the caregiver could play opera music. Or if the client was an avid photographer, let's put together a photo album of the client's photos or of other photos that maybe are meaningful family photos, that sort of thing, to really engage in activities. Maybe they had a really green thumb and there's still a nice garden at their home. Well, let's do some, you know, very basic gardening just to sort of get, you know, their body and mind working a little bit. So around that, so those sorts of exciting activities. Janet, do you want me to pause for a moment so we can answer a few of the questions that have come up, or do we want to wait till the end?
Carrie, what do you think? We have a vignette at the end that we can always leave out if we don't have enough time, Carrie, just so you know. We always like to leave a little space for pull something out. Do you think we should wait, or?
You could take a couple questions. So I think you addressed some of them. How can one get 1 hour of home care per day just for dressing and showering? You addressed that.
I don't know anybody that does that. We have a 3-hour minimum. We can't get the caregivers to go. So, I mean, how do you do that? You know, I'll tell you how you do that. Maybe and I'm always nervous to tell people to hire privately because, you know, you really have to vet. But, you know, you might have to, I don't know. I mean, a question is, I don't know if you're a member of Ashby Village, if they do that. I don't even think they do that. But you might have to put like an ad somewhere and get like a student that lives in the neighborhood that would come by and help you, or another person in the neighborhood. I mean, right now it's difficult because of the virus. I really don't know. It's a really
Yeah,
hard
and
one.
it is a challenge, absolutely. And it's,
Yeah.
as Janet said, we get that kind of inquiry quite often. And I think someone had also asked a question about, financially, what suggestions do we have on affordability for those who either do not meet the income threshold for IHSS or have a high share of cost? I don't really have an answer, except
Yeah, they're tough questions right now.
it's really hard, and I empathize in the sense that it's not looking much prettier for 20 or 30 years from now either. You know,
One of the things I recommend is the private hire, because the private, I mean, again, you have to be really careful because you don't know who you're bringing in. You really have to vet them. But
yeah,
so the agencies are expensive because like a home care agencies now are like 28 to, some of them are up at like 35 an hour. And believe me, it has to do with the government and what we have to pay, and laws in place. And caregiving is it's not an easy task, and so these people should be getting paid well. But there's a lot of it's not padding from the agency, but there's taxes, there's workman's comp, there's all kinds of costs associated with working through an agency, obviously, and there's tremendous benefits, and most people like to work with an agency. But if you can't afford it, that's one way we direct people, is try and find it privately. If you have an extra room, can someone come and live with you and do the care?
That's a
You have
good
to get very
segue.
creative.
I think a question about what's the best way to vet a home care provider. I know you've covered, you cover that well. In general, either with
Yeah.
organization or just separately. What sort of things are important to look for?
Well, first of all, you really want to get a background check. Typically, like your accountant might be able to direct you on how to get a background check. You want to get references, and make sure they're references that aren't friends, that they actually work for these people, and ask detailed questions. Were they on time? What was your relationship like with them? And honestly, I would try to talk directly to the client. I mean, if you can't, the adult child's fine as well, but you got to worry a little bit about, I mean, even our organization, we do reference checks. We get I think we call 2 reference checks, and it has to be somebody they worked for directly, but we worry about those a little bit. They're not the do and die all. I think that another important thing, so you ask these questions about their experience, make sure it matches yours. Obviously feel some compatibility during the interview, some sort of connection. And again, your questions are directed at what you need done and what's their experience level with that. But I think the bottom line is, once they start, if you have somebody else at the initial meeting when you're interviewing, that's important, like a friend, family member. So they see there's other people involved that are going to be looking over things. And then once they start, and you tell them, this is a trial, let's try this for a week. Keep an eye on them and watch them. We always tell our families, put your checkbooks away, your credit cards, don't have anything of value out that people can take. So that's what I would recommend.
That's great. That's super rich information. Anna, what do you think? We've got a few more, but maybe we should go on with the content and we can come back to these.
absolutely. I will address just one more. Someone asked about COVID and precautions, which is an excellent question and something that we think about all day, every day. So I will say that, knock on my not wood desk, but so far we have had no cases of COVID among caregivers and clients. So we have been very purposefully careful and lucky in some ways. So we're very proud of that. We work really hard to keep that. Our caregivers are 100% of the time wearing a mask, certainly in a client's home. They are washing hands frequently and thoroughly, using gloves more often than they might normally, certainly for any personal care needs and beyond. They are required, of course, to call us and not go into work if they feel any symptom of sickness, regardless of what they think it is. We do offer sick time to our caregivers. They are our employees, they're not contractors. And so They are offered sick time. If there is a concern of exposure, we immediately have them quarantined for 2 weeks, and they are on, on paid sick leave for 2 weeks. So we both take care of them and our clients, certainly, because our clients are, in the most vulnerable groups. So we really are taking it very seriously. We are in constant communication with all of our caregivers, whether it's sending out mass educational texts or, as the case really usually is talking to our caregivers on a very regular basis. Our director of home care knows all of our caregivers well. She is on the phone with them, all day, every day, and checking in with them. And it's a very, we're in high communication. And so it's something that we're taking very seriously. We offer goggles to any caregiver working in a facility. We encourage them to be wearing them as well at all times. We also offer masks, of course, free and gloves to our caregivers as well to use. So that's not an out-of-pocket expense. And certainly any client who requests that caregivers be COVID tested, we honor that absolutely.
We also are prepared in case we get a COVID case. So we have 10 kits and protocols in place. So that's very important. We have not had to do it yet, but it could happen. I mean, it's definitely happening out there. So we're just, as I said, just being as careful as we can. And any caregiver that goes to a facility and then they're going to go see another client, in the facilities, they only go directly to the client's room with their goggles, but they have to change their clothes before they go over. So there's a lot of protocols in place, as Anna said. We're just trying to we've been doing this since the beginning. It's definitely been very effective. And I have to say, we have to give a lot of credit to our caregivers. Really, I mean, think about it. We have a lot of them, and they're doing a great job taking care of themselves and making sure they don't bring anything to the client. They also distance in the house if they can. If they can distance, they take care of the client, and then they sit 6 feet apart from them, and they open up the windows in the house. So they're, watching stuff like that as well.
All right, Janet, would you talk about Fiduciary?
So another service that we find people commonly need are fiduciary services. It can be anybody that can be your power of attorney, your conservator, a trustee, a bookkeeper is a fiduciary. So it's anybody that really, you're starting to feel like, I'm not paying my bills on time. This is overwhelming. I don't want to balance my checkbook. I know a lot of this is done online now, but if you're ever feeling a little overwhelmed, there are many referrals out there. We're happy to give you referrals in these areas. And as I said, a lot of people end up having a fiduciary that in some capacity. I mean, everybody should have the first two. And their advanced healthcare directives and their posts and automatically. So that a lot of people ask about what is a fiduciary. Sometimes they're court appointed. I used to be a court appointed fiduciary. I did all fiduciary work, but I did court appointed conservatorships. So I hope none of you ever end up in that situation, but sometimes people don't have a durable power of attorney for finance, especially, or health. Health you can usually get by, but not finance, and they can't handle their money, so there's a court-appointed conservator. That's why we tell people, get your documents and your plan in place, because you don't want a court-appointed conservator trying to figure out what is best for you. So.
All right, and then just to kind of review some of the options, I know we've previously had questions around living options for outside of one's own home. So we just thought we would review these briefly. We also have a document that I believe will get emailed to you. So we can offer assistance with selecting and transitioning to another place to live, a facility of some kind. So there are different kinds of facilities, as I'm sure you're aware. There's independent living, in which there are no actual extra services offered, but you are in, congregate housing, you're in your own apartment, you do everything on your own. Assisted living is when there are sort of a la carte services available for things like the caregivers from the facility will help with, the bathing or There will be a dining room, a group dining room where everyone eats together. Right now, of course, meals are being brought to people's apartments or rooms in facilities because of COVID, but typically everyone will come down and eat lunch and dinner together. Breakfast is often on your own. But assisted living offers kind of a similar option to caregivers, where you can get assistance with some of your activities of daily living. Residential care facilities for the elderly, or RCFEs, are also known as board and care facilities. So they're similar to an assisted living, but they may not offer as many of the social options. So assisted livings often have social options too, different lectures and outings and movies and games and different sorts of activities for people to enjoy. The residential care facilities are for the elderly are usually quite small. They're usually look very similar to a home, but they may have between 4 and 10 residents. And so there will be staff there 24/7 to assist with medication management, which is something that of course an assisted living could help with as well. They will get people their care, their personal care. Meals are provided, all home cooked meals. But they're smaller, and they also tend to be less expensive than an assisted living because they don't offer as many of the frills, in a sense. Continuing care retirement communities, CCRCs, are places where you pay a very high initial cost, a kind of a buy-in cost, as well as a monthly fee, but your care needs are guaranteed for life, meaning that there's usually independent living, assisted living, memory care, and nursing care offered, all of those levels of care. So as a person has higher needs, they are able to transition to that level of care. It's all included. You will move within the facility, but not outside of the facility. So it'll be a less kind of jarring move in a sense, and you're guaranteed for life to be there. And of course, nursing homes or skilled nursing facilities are places if you need actual what they call skilled care. So care from someone like a nurse or a doctor or a physician's assistant, actually getting that care 24/7. Janet, did you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. What are our takeaways? Go ahead, Janet.
The first one is we all talked about it. I think if you take anything away from today, and I always say this, I'm out there, I'm not a preacher of this, is to just try and think things out and plan, because there's just nothing better than feeling like something happens to me, I'm going to be taken care of. There's so much anxiety that is involved when people don't have plans. I mean, luckily, we're supposed to be talking a lot about care management today. Care managers can go in the worst crisis and put it together so fast and make things smooth, run the way they should run, but it's challenging. So, and sometimes we have seen that we get stuck in situations where our clients aren't getting exactly what they would have wanted, and there's no control over it because somebody else is calling the shots. Sometimes it's a child, unfortunately. So at that point, that's where we come in, and we're doing a lot, as a care manager, you're doing a lot of advocacy, but it's all based on the client. We often have to talk to the children and get them to see what the parent really needs and what they really want. So be proactive. And certainly, like we said earlier, it's got to be really scary being a senior and knowing that this current virus is not going to sit well, with you, that you probably would get really sick. I mean, thankfully, so many are not. People don't want to end up in facilities right now, but the Bay Area still has all the social services in place. Everybody's open, whether it's remotely or not. People are here. You can call our office. We just brought a small group of us back in our office. We were able to do that, but we're also remote 24/7. So just know that you're not alone during this very difficult time. Do we want to do we want to answer all the questions, Carrie?
Yeah,
and then if
we have a few
time,
more.
we can do a vignette.
Yeah, can we? Sure. So one participant asks, please address the client's home insurance covering liability if a caregiver is injured in the home for freelancers or private versus home care company with employees.
Ouch. That's all I have to say. So we see this. Like I said, we're very concerned about the people that are in the middle that can't afford caregiving. It mortifies me, what agencies charge. The way to do that, and we do it all the time, and I'll tell you, I'm pounding on people to do this. If you have a private caregiver, you need to call your insurance agent, your homeowner's insurance, and make sure you're covered for workman's comp. That's all you have to do. It's usually covered. Many times you have to let them know, and sometimes they put a rider on. It's very inexpensive. It's not expensive for us, it's cheaper in someone's home. You can get workman's comp for them, and I've looked into this before, and it's not that expensive, but you've got to get it, because if not, and they hurt themselves and they go to a hospital, you're responsible for the hospital bills. I've seen some people have to pay over $100,000 for a caregiver with a back problem. Now, agencies, of course, we cover everything. You have nothing to do with anything at all. And by the way, the liability, like if they hit your neighbor's car or do anything, it's usually covered under a homeowner's insurance. But you've got to let your homeowner's insurance know and research it.
Thanks. And someone also asked about the CCRC places. Did they increase their rates, and how is that regulated? Carrie let me know that actually UC Berkeley has a whole workshop on facilities. So stay tuned from Carrie.
Yeah, I'll add, yeah, that's very helpful. There is some annual increase in CCRCs, but for the very just cost of living, but all in all, the cost should be laid out all in the contract. It's very important for you to look at the contract, have your experts look at the contract to see how that works. And then there was a question about how do you learn more about those congregate facilities without the sales activities. So we actually started a program where we have a lecture series at the communities, 2 of them right now, St. Paul's and Belmont Village, and it's a chance for you to just go and listen to a lecture and see the walls, the inside walls, with a low pressure environment. So we are always looking to expand that too. We do a session on that though that goes through all of how do you understand them, etc. I'll also put a plug in for help me out, the people that help you go out and look at facilities.
Placement specialists.
We did not bring that up.
Yeah, placement specialists. They really, you may feel suspicious about their intentions, but it's in their best interest to refer you to a facility or a home that it matches you. They get a fee from the retirement community, a referral fee, but most of the referral folks I know they're not biased by the fee they get, and in fact they insist on not getting more of a fee from a community. They try to make that fee across the board the same. So those guys can help you. They don't get money from you, they get money from the community. Most of them that I've met are very ethical, and I can refer you to a few of those folks.
Good. And we work with them regularly. We didn't, we should put that in our presentation, Anna.
Yeah, we can follow up and send some more information to folks. Placement specialists, yeah, that's the name.
And we do work, like we have the same situation where we know some that we can really rely on. So otherwise, please get a good referral on them, because you want to make sure that they're doing what you need.
And questions? Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to add, exactly what you said, Carrie. Just to say it again, is that the placement specialist is, you may be suspicious, like, are they like a real estate agent where they're kind of winning as well? But it really is in their best interest to make sure that you're satisfied. So just to keep that in mind. Let's see. I think that was all for the moment that I had seen. Okay.
Yeah. I think we answered, can you plan within an hour's time? So we answered that. Is there an online certified care manager for areas beyond the East Bay. And I would, the care manager website, can you put that in the chat, Anna?
Oh, yeah, I can put that in the, yeah, hold on.
There's a certified care managers membership association.
I'm just pulling up the actual website so I can give you.
Somebody asked for our contact information.
Yeah, and that'll be in the front of the slides too,
Okay.
and we can share that in the email. Okay. Then there's a question about a Kaiser patient. Please address resources for home health for Kaiser patients. Does Kaiser require its patients to get care from Kaiser affiliate providers? I don't know if you know that in your experience, Jan.
They do. They require Kaiser does their own home health.
Yeah.
There might be an instance where they get over busy and they contract it out, and we work with their home health people. And yes, and like one of the things we do with home health is sometimes they're not giving you what you need with Kaiser. We love Kaiser Oakland, so I don't want to say anything bad about them. I think they do the best they can, but we work with their home health people to make sure people get the services that they need, because sometimes they can be a little chintzy. I have to say. So
just the bare minimum, perhaps, right?
Yeah, but I don't want to be negative, because they do good work, and like I said, that's our job sometimes to push a little bit more.
That's right. This is interesting. I think you and Anna both. It's about chronic care management for Parkinson's, for example, and that getting that sort of support over time, 10, 15 years of that, or so can you say more about chronic management, for instance, Parkinson's?
Well, we used to actually work directly for the Northern California Parkinson's, association. We've also worked with the MS group as well. So we have a lot of experience with Parkinson's. Is that what they're asking? Like, how do we specifically work with it?
Perhaps the person can make a more detailed question in there. Maybe an example of working with a Parkinson's patient as a care
so
manager.
If the minute we have a certain type of illness, if we're not really familiar with it, the care manager's researching it. Parkinson's happens to be one that we've had a lot of cases, so we know you have to really know as a care manager what are the particular details, what are the vulnerabilities, and certainly risk factors, and be ahead of those, be proactive and ahead of those. Anticipate, I call it anticipating risk factors, is a very important function of the care manager with Parkinson's. And certainly anticipating what care they might need now and in the future. And we work a lot with families when we have this kind of a situation with financing, because some people are like, oh, don't worry about the money, but others need to really look at the money. And so we help pre-plan for long-term financial needs as well. But again, I understand what you're saying. We have a lot of ALS, Parkinson's, and MS, and it's just really understanding the illness and what comes along with that care. We make sure the caregivers, I'm talking about the care managers, but the caregivers also. What's really nice about our caregivers is they do come with a lot of experience. Most of them do, and they have worked with this sort of illness many times. We would certainly pick a caregiver that has worked with Parkinson's. We usually have would have a supply of caregivers that work particularly with Parkinson's.
So sounds like really, and it's interesting to think about mapping out the financial plan where that comes in as well, because that
kind of long-term with everybody we need to, but if it's going to, if it's something specific and certain things are going to happen, you have more control of really taking a look at what the course might be and how can we make sure this person's cared for correctly. And one of the most important things is making sure they're benefiting from services in the area.
Yeah, exactly. And you can connect that's the benefit of working with the care manager that can bring in all of those particular services.
And one of the first people we talk to, we often, we team up with the National Parkinson's groups. So, and that's really, we're looking for the experts ourselves.
Yeah.
Even though, because we're not experts, we're experts in dementia. That I will tell you, with any kind of cognitive or brain syndrome, we're experts in a lot of areas. But when it comes to something like Parkinson's, MS, although we've done a lot of MS, we really do take the time to educate ourselves if that particular care manager or caregiver are not educated in it and haven't worked with it. And we try and make sure people have.
And that would be maybe a good question to ask when people are looking for a care manager. Tell me, give me the examples of how your comprehensive, plan, et cetera. I did want to put in so the question I wanted to, so can I plan with you within an hour's time for initial pre-planning and don't need services yet?
Yes, and we will probably, if you want to just come in and talk, it would be free. Now we're doing a little bit more Zoom because we're trying to be really careful, but yes, it's free. But some people want to come in for an hour and they want to get going and they want to register, like I call it kind of pre-registry. So they want to come in, they want to give us their information, talk about their situation or what they might need. And then we put it, like I said, into our software system. So you have a problem, we already have a lot of your information and we're able to react and respond a little bit more quickly and maybe effectively. Could we do that in an hour? If there's not a lot of issues, certainly. And you know what? If you want us to do it in an hour, we'll do it. We'll just charge you an hour. It's not a big deal. Not for us. Yes, we can put it in, and we know that you're in there, and we're ready to move, as needed.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, we can be very efficient.
And Jen, you can go overtime, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If you want to just pay for an hour, we're happy to do that. And we do get that. Anna, we have a lot of that. I told Anna one day, if everyone gets sick at once, we're in trouble. But
there was a further question about Parkinson's. Might there be a monthly check-in and assessment with Parkinson's, for instance? I guess we answered that you really are looking at a plan, but they're asking specifically to be a monthly check-in and assessment. Oh, yeah. I don't know if they mean just that and that's it, or if they mean, as a part of the whole plan. I imagine you're checking in a lot.
So yeah, everybody's assessed initially, and we make a recommendation of what kind of monitoring needs to be done. And certainly with someone with Parkinson's, we'd hope if they don't have a caregiver, it's a little more complicated. If they have a caregiver, that caregiver has to call the office the minute they see a change, any kind of progression. But that's what the monthly check-in would be, let's see what's changing and how do we adjust the care plan accordingly.
Yeah.
But if they have a caregiver, we will be following with that caregiver, and they will know to be watching for certain things. Just like with dementia, what are you watching for? What can that lead to? And a lot of education around it. Those are really important questions.
Yeah.
Because you don't just want to meet us and say goodbye. You want to be checked. You want that monitoring and oversight.
Yeah, I would say too that for the client who has Parkinson's, we can either schedule a monthly or more frequent check-in in person, on the phone, on Zoom, where they can say, I feel like I've been having this situation recently, or I can't really do this as well anymore. So we are noting that, as Janet said, and keeping track so that, hey, do we need to implement more services, whether that's a caregiver, or if they're not getting, let's say, physical therapy, maybe we need a physical therapist, or maybe we need a trainer of some kind, if it's not a physical therapist, but someone who's going to be another service provider to get your needs met.
And what's nice about our company, I know we're not supposed to talk so much about our company, but we team up. So when Anna has a case, or when Pam has a case, they're speaking. We're the three of us are talking weekly right now because we have a lot of active cases. Every case is given a lot of attention. So it goes through me, it goes through Anna, maybe another care manager, and then sometimes we're sending it out to our other care managers. I just had, we have a client who we can't get to bathe. Poor thing, she's late stage Alzheimer's, and even though that's such a simple thing, and I've been in this field so long, I'm like, I want you to email that to Jerry, or email it out to the whole team, because there's always, a lot of teamwork. But, with Parkinson's too, you can do something like a 15-minute check-in once a week. That's the nice thing about care management, is that there shouldn't be a minimum. And you can do, we're looking at cases where there's Parkinson's, we're looking physically too, because we can see things, and we're telling our caregivers, look for this, look for that, this could happen. let us know if that's happening because we should change this. Or, so, it's an evolving, detailed assessment on a regular basis. And we know when we first meet with someone how often monitoring needs to occur. So, and we make it happen. I mean, there are, we're not supposed to talk politics, but, we all hope that there's going to be some sort of national plan for seniors who are in the middle. I mean, I think if we get the right administration, I think that's what the plan is, because it is just, they're just limping along, and even people on IHSS aren't really getting 100% of what they need.
That's in-home supportive services, right? IHSS, yeah. So that's for
In-home
underserved, right? There's a couple more questions. These are similar. Could a care manager assist with coordinating Kaiser long-term care insurance, paperwork for health insurance? And also is the pay structure like a retainer?
So
go ahead, Anna.
I was going to say, so we absolutely can assist with paperwork. If you already have the long-term care insurance, typically, it seems daunting. Typically, there's not a whole lot of paperwork on your end as the client. Typically, if you were to give us the, your member number and the name of your long-term care insurance, we take care of submitting all the claims. So for instance, for caregiving, so for instance, you call your long-term care and you say, hello, I'm initiating caregiving services. And I will send my information to Senior Alternatives. So Senior Alternatives calls the long-term care saying, hello, we are Senior Alternatives, and we are initiating services with Jane Smith. And are we on your list of accredited providers? And if not, please add us. Okay, so they do that, and then every week we submit a sheet of paper which has all of the caregiving tasks on it that the caregivers have completed, the kind of need that the client has. We submit that to the long-term care insurance, and then they will just directly reimburse you for whatever the amount is that is allowed per day. So it's fairly seamless.
We do it all the time. And
yeah,
there's been times we've helped people with paperwork for everything. Like I said, care managers will do everything, and well, within limits, but whatever we have to do, we do. I mean, we try and be efficient too. So we might, if we see someone has a lot of paperwork, we might find a bookkeeper for you that will come over and do that at a lot less money. We try and look at what we're doing and not do things that we don't need to do, that there are other resources out there that can do it, that we trust. So yeah, but we have done that before. There are some, some bookkeepers that might come in. I think they're more like 65 an hour, that will help with some of this stuff as well. And it does seem daunting, but we've done it for years, all long-term care insurance, and we work with Kaiser since we've been here, because and they refer to us a lot. Like I said, we know them very well. We've been happy with them. And they're very close to our office. So we've spoken with a lot of their staff as well. We do on a regular basis. We know their systems.
And another question, do we work with vets whose health insurance is through the VA? And if not, can we recommend organizations that can coordinate care with the VA? Yeah, we absolutely can work with vets and work through the VA, because I know it's a daunting process to get into the VA and to talk to the right people. So we can absolutely help with navigating that system.
Yeah, we've done that in the past, multiple times. So it's hard. I mean, it's just that push, and the care manager, is sitting at their desk and they're doing that. And it doesn't, I'm always watching, and the care managers are, no one ever is like, oh my God, what a bill. We're very careful with how we spend our time. So.
Yeah, I would like to see if people are more comfortable not chatting, but have actually if they haven't had their question answered, to either use the raise the hand feature, or what I'll do is maybe let's stop sharing the slides and let's take a look and see if we've got people that need to ask a question, old analog style here. I'm going to look for cameras, and anybody want to turn their camera off and wave, or unmute themselves and ask a question. Yes, Ann Goldman, if you can unmute yourself and then unmute yourself first. Yeah, go for it.
Could you put could you put the addresses and names of this organization up so
Yeah.
we could?
And okay if we email that to you too, Ann?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, we'll do that then. No problem. Thank you. Okay, well, just checking. I think we're low on questions in the chat feature, so you guys would like to wrap it up, and she means your address. So yeah, we can send the address and the phone number and email, website, etc.
We have a vignette, but we don't have to do it. I mean, it's just really a client and how we apply the services. I mean, I think if people would like us to, but also like if anyone would like to ask, if you're okay with it, a personal question. I mean, I think people have, but if there's anything on your mind, I think that's better than a vignette.
Yeah, and there's a telephone person here. I can unmute too. I'm just going to unmute you on the telephone. Last three numbers 963, just in case we want to make everybody have access to asking questions. So I'll try to unmute you. Sometimes Zoom is just, fraught.
So someone asked, how is this different in other states in terms of care management?
I think they're in another state and perhaps
yeah.
interested. And I think by accessing that website that Anna sent in the chat, and we can email that website as well.
And what's good is there's local care managers too. So we're not the only one. There's a small group of us now, very few, but we're not the only one. So you want to interview a few care managers.
Yeah, I mean, the regulations do they vary state to state?
Well, for caregiving, yes, California has we have to all be licensed now. Care management, pretty much care managers, most of us do the similar thing that we're doing, but some have their own style and might do things a little differently. But generally, I like to look at social workers or a nurse that's had a lot of social work experience. So I think when you're interviewing for a care manager, you also want to talk about your situation. And if they can't quickly give you a thumbnail care plan and you're not going, oh, shoot, that feels good. They're not just using that anxiety. They're not the right person. They don't have that experience. Does that help? But we are a national organization, but not everybody belongs to it. It's not like Homecare, where in California, every state has their own licensing department, obviously. It's very uniform. Everything's done the same way. We all have the same,
Who was the licensing body in California for Homecare? Who is that licensing?
It's called the Bureau of Homecare, and it's under the Social Services Department. So it's a state organization. It's new. We've only had it, I think, 3 to 4 years.
Yeah,
I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. My license comes through the Board of Behavioral Science examiners. We've had that for years. I mean, you don't have to have a license to be a care manager, but it's certainly a nice thing to have, but it's not necessary, but at all. But many care managers are not even social workers, so don't go by that. But in terms of each state and what they're doing, and California's a little stricter, so you're in a good state. But other states too, like you'll see other states, they're not as strict, and even the care managers might not have as many degrees. So that's why it's nice to look for a social work or a nursing degree, but have that experience added on. I actually have someone with a Master of Science in Gerontology, so there you go. She's my only one that's not an MSW, because I'm an MSW snob. But she is one of our finest care managers.
I appreciate you putting us into the family. I do. They do bring that, but they don't. They need a little bit more clinical, experience. But they do have an understanding of gerontology. There's the question. I think Anna addressed it in the chat, so I hope that's clear about about how the fee structure works, and Anna can continue to address that in the chat there. I could, so is it still a little unclear about the fee structure for a care manager? Are we charged by the hour, $155 an hour like a lawyer?
No.
Yes, though we only charge in 5-minute increments.
Yeah,
so if the phone call is 10 minutes, we charge for 10 minutes worth of $155. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, your charge, and that's something we try and be very clear about, your charge for phone calls, because so much is done on the phone. Drive time's half the rate.
Yeah.
It's from our office in Oakland, but if they're in Contra Costa, it's a different kind of a charge. We're not going to charge from Oakland, it's charged from Central Contra Costa. And again, we try and be as fair as we can around our fees. We're lucky that we've been growing, and we've been very successful. So we're very client-centered, so we can be that way. So like we have clients that come on as home care only. They really do need care management. We do it, and then if it's ongoing, obviously we have to charge. But we also some people can't afford it, and it gets done anyway. So it's people are afraid of care management because it can be really scary. It can be like a lawyer bill. You get it, and it's like panic. But we try really hard to let people know what we're charging, what the time is, and if you're sensitive, let that care manager know that. I want to know how things are being charged, what my time might be daily, how long is this going to take. I would ask that stuff because it's important.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take as long as you think because we're efficient at it, we're careful, and it can be very helpful.
So we can share those kinds of questions. I think you mentioned the website Bananas, Anna, which is a caregiving website. Well, we can give you guys a list of what are the good questions to ask when you go and are searching out a care manager.
That's right. It's on the website. It's on the national website.
Yeah. What other questions? And from the group, I'm just going to eyeball. And Anna's answering questions in the chat too, which is super helpful.
The violations in a facility?
Yeah, that's the assisted living. You can go to the Department of Social Services. They have a state check-in for checking licensing and violations of facilities. It's so interesting though. There's so much context when it comes to that. Yeah. I would caution. I've looked through them in great detail, and of course, if one facility has 50 marks against them and one doesn't, that's a good sign that 51 is just not doing well, doing poorly. But sometimes things come up, and the social service department is required to come in and address that complaint. Sometimes there's a lot of context, though, that we don't get from the outside in. Certainly, though, you could check it. And when you go to visit a place, say, hey, I looked at your profile and you got a couple of issues here. Can you tell me how you address them? It's what I would recommend. I would take it with a grain of salt because there's a lot more context there that we're not privy to.
Yeah.
I think by far, if they have a lot of red marks against them, I think you can probably assume that something is being done poorly there.
The Canner website, CANHR, is for nursing homes.
Yeah. That's a great one as well. And we share that in our housing, when we do the housing, usually do that in the spring, senior housing, and how do you understand how to choose one. And
one of my famous chants is your living environment is only as good as your family follow-up or friend follow-up. So if you have an advocate, people will go, what do you think of this nursing home or that nursing home? I'm like, are you going to be there checking up on mom, at the care plan meetings? It takes a B and makes it an A, or a C and makes it a B. So if you do end up in any kind of a facility, it's just having an advocate, someone else besides yourself, checking. And we do that a lot. We have people that don't have families locally or that don't have families, and we check in with the facility. We sit in on the care plan meetings. We watch, and the minute they know someone's watching, the care is better. I'm sorry to say that, but it's factual. It's just the truth. It really is. There's someone that they're accountable to, and big part of that is having your caregiver involved or having a friend or a partner. Start talking about that with a friend or a partner right now. That's what you need from them. We're getting some good questions in the chat.
I think we can start to wrap it up. I learned so much. I always learn when I listen to you, both of you, Janet and Anna. I hope everyone else here learned something new. Of course, if you have questions, we will send you the contact information for Anna and Janet, and also ours, and we can follow up and answer questions. Any last thoughts or wrapping up from you guys? Anna and Janet?
Oh, I just thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It's great to see so many people participating. I mean, it's because we all know it's crazy times, and on a personal note, I just hope that there is some sort of care going forward, some sort of benefit from our government for this middle ground. And I think there are all intentions, if we can get the right people in office, of that happening, because you do have it in you have it in other states. New York has a great system in place. So we're just kind of hoping that there's going to be some federal money. I don't know. I don't want to get too political, but
I agree, Janet. I think the system is fragmented, and it's not, I think home care and care management is a major piece to making sure that your care is covered in the home where everybody wants to stay. I know you have a relationship with the villages, Ashby Village in Berkeley. The Village movement is a movement that is volunteer based to support people in their homes. And when that becomes too difficult, care management services are really there to help wrap around those services. So I think Ashby Village is really the wraparound, and then you can bring in the care management to help for when you're very frail and want to stay in your home. We can send information about villages too. I'm a big fan, and I know Janet and Anna are a big fan of the Village movement. So
they're amazing. And I will say, just one more kind of plug, but very heartfelt plug for care management is that it's probably not going to be a whole lot of money in order to provide some peace of mind that at least you have some plan. It may not be a perfect plan. There are parts that may still be quite fragmented, particularly if money is not endless, but having that peace of mind, just, it's the same peace of mind as when you've checked off that you've completed your, durable power of attorney, or that you've checked off that you've done certain things to start that planning. It makes you feel so much less anxious, in general, whether you're, 30 or 75. So I think it's, it's really important to get those things done.
And if you're not going to have the money for the plan, you could talk, that's another thing to talk out. Well, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Why don't I go visit some places? If you're not going to be able to stay at home, or I want you, my power of attorney, to bring in a student that's going to live here and take care, whatever it's going to be.
That's right. I think a 4-hour care management visit is worth its weight in gold. Just a visit with a care manager, sit down with them, and they're the experts. It is worth its weight to have that plan, whether or not you get home care or not. I think just having that plan in place is incredibly valuable. We know that if you don't, it can be far more chaotic.
Yeah. And
your wishes aren't followed, right? Yeah.
Be careful. I mean, I don't need to tell you, be careful who you let in your house. But be careful. So, we have to be careful as we're not worried about us. We're protecting ourselves very carefully, but we're all very careful. But we're more worried about you. So care management can look a little different right now because everyone's trying to minimize time with clients, obviously. So we are going into people's homes if we need to and if it's appropriate, but our care managers are wearing goggles and masks. I mean, we have face guards too. We're opening windows. We are doing a lot of Zoom at times, especially if there's another person there with them, and they don't have to be observed. But we also have to be careful too. We don't want to we will probably have to be careful not to be too careful and then miss something. So that's the problem with Zooming right now with clients but we're careful with that too. And if you use a care manager, whether it's us or somebody else, just make sure that they are careful. Ask them how they're protecting themselves. What are they coming into your house with in terms of PPE, personal protective equipment.
Yeah, you guys, we have a lot of good questions that you can ask these days. Now you have a list of things that you can really ask to make sure you're getting the best care. And I want to thank Janet and
Thank you.
Anna for really sharing that frontline experience that we don't necessarily get in an academic world. I think, it's theory to practice, and that's what's essential about us partnering together to share this today with the participants. So I want to thank you and thank everyone for joining and
Yeah.
taking your
Thank
morning
you.
to really give this information to yourself. Take care, guys. We'll talk
Okay.
soon. Anna, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank
All
you
right,
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye.